Hello and good evening, everyone. Welcome to our first ever Women United Speaker Series, OverDUE. My name is Jassy Hundle, and I have the great pleasure of leading our Women United program as the Director of Resource Development with United Way Halton and Hamilton. Today, over 300 registered as we gather here to join in an intimate conversation as we explore gender equality and diversity with our special guest speaker, Jennifer Hostin. Gender equality is the unfinished business of our time, with women and girls representing half the world's population. But it is women like Jennifer breaking down barriers and shattering glass ceilings. And yes, representation matters. And we will continue to hit those milestones together. And this leads me into our Women United program. Our Women United program is an important part of United Way Halton and Hamilton, and a National United Way worldwide program. Women United is a global growing force of over 70,000 women who are dedicated to creating a world of opportunity for everyone and creating a lasting change to lift up their communities. We advocate for health, education, and financial stability of every person in every community. United Way, Halton and Hamilton, Women United is a network like no other. Female leaders, female-led committees, and groups coming together, doing more, raising more, and going deeper and broader in making a lasting difference. Each and every one of our members continue to demonstrate leadership and commitment to the success of their communities in which they live, work, or raise their families. Your United Way invests $1.1 million into 12 agencies and 26 programs that support women and girls through intervention, crisis, and prevention. This year, our Women United Cabinet Chair, Margaret Grice, and Co-Chair Jennifer Cook, along with our incredible Women United subcommittee, are leading the way in helping raise funds to support many vital programs needed in our community, not only to support women and girls, but for everyone. The leadership, the passion, the commitment, the care our members bring is transforming our communities and creating social change. Today's event and our upcoming Women United Speaker Series could not be possible without our very own Women United member, Michaela Hutchinson. Michaela is a local Oakville resident who has dedicated her career to doing good as a humanitarian, social entrepreneur, philanthropist, and a strong activist for women's rights. Her passion has led her to work with various social services and charities around the world. So back in May, in the heart of the pandemic, Michaela and I started talking about how can we bring people together and build awareness and advocate for gender equality. It was her vision that has brought us all together today, together in diversity, together in unity and equality. Michaela will be joining us this evening as she takes us through an intimate conversation with our special guest speaker, Jennifer Hostin. Jennifer is a radio announcer, development worker, diplomat, author, model, and beauty queen who won the Miss World 1970 contest representing Grenada. She became the first woman of color to take the title Miss World. Jennifer served as High Commissioner to Canada from Grenada and has had a full and accomplished career. Jennifer resides here in Oakville and is a grandmother to her 5 grandchildren. It is my great pleasure to invite onto the screen Michaela and Jennifer. Jennifer,
Hello.
if you will please turn on your camera and mic. And just your camera, great.
The best. There she is.
Hello,
Thank you,
everybody.
Jazzy. I'm honored to be chatting with our special guest, Jennifer Hostin, tonight, and grateful to all of you who found value in participating in our OverDUE session. Welcome, Jennifer. First woman of color to be crowned Miss World. It puts you front and center at the 1970s women's liberation movement, which you talk about in your new book. The same book that inspired the major motion picture Misbehavior, a film written, directed, and produced by women. You have traveled the world, received calls from prime ministers, earned other prestigious crowns as Grenada's ambassador and high commissioner to Canada. You've taken on a role as technical advisor on trade in the Caribbean, managed challenging positions as country analyst in Central and Eastern Europe, Pakistan, and aid worker in Bangladesh. You woke up one morning to a revolution, a political coup, I might add. You faced devastating hurricane on the eve of a new business venture in Grenada, experienced 3 different kinds of marriages, raised 2 children, returned to school twice in your adulthood. You've authored 2 books, now grandmother of 5, plus so much more. I think it's fair to say your life has been interesting and equally eventful since winning Miss World 1970. For those watching this evening, I invite you, if you haven't already, to read Jennifer's latest book, Miss World 1970, How I Entered a Pageant and Wound Up Making History. Within these pages, she shares her life experiences and wisdom. Jennifer is here with us tonight, Jazzy said, from her home in Oakville. Our conversation will highlight some of her life experiences, her wisdom, and answer a few questions from our viewers pertaining to diversity, unity, and equality. Jennifer, Guru Mata Ra, the actress who plays you in the movie Misbehavior, wrote a beautiful foreword in your book. Here is just a snippet to open up our conversation. One could argue that there is still progress to be made in terms of how women are objectified in our culture. Yet there is also so much power in being represented, in feeling seen, and having choices in life. It matters who gets to be celebrated. Cultural beauty, standards, and optics on who we value as a winner give a message of belonging and self-esteem at a deep subliminal level. Before Beyonce, before Rihanna, before Zendaya, there was Jennifer Hostin, a true trailblazer, an icon to inspire the next generation to know that they are seen and valued on the world stage. Wow. Jennifer, throughout your diplomatic career and variety of leadership roles, you have advocated for diversity, unity, and equality. Can you share a couple of your experiences with us where there was an overdue situation that you addressed?
Well, gosh, first of all,
so many.
Thank you for that lovely introduction and for reading the really brilliant foreword written by Guru, who I must say is one of the people I admire very much now. She's a wonderful actress, and I was very fortunate that she was the person who played my part in the movie. To answer your question, well, certainly in 1970, while at least half of the contestants at the Miss World contest were women from developing countries, from Asia, Africa, India, and all different parts of the world, it was still an anomaly when I won in 1970, and the contest had been going for 30 years at that point. So that's one point, one example. In 1978, when I became High Commissioner for Grenada to Canada, I was invited as the only woman head of mission to tour the Northwest Territories.
Yeah.
And I was delighted. I was so excited because I'd always wanted to go to Yellowknife and Whitehorse and places like that. And then I received a letter from the protocol department saying, Jennifer, we'd love you to come, but unfortunately, we don't have any facilities for women. So in 1978, I actually was one of the first women diplomats, women heads of state. So I almost gave up at that point. But fortunately, Prime Minister Trudeau interceded for me. He made a cocktail party and asked me if I was going to go up north. And I said to him, it seems that they don't have facilities for women. And he said to me, are you going to let that stop you? And he intervened because the next day I was invited back to the territories. So that's 1978. In the year 2000, I went to one of my banks. I was a professional, working with the government, had my own credit rating and everything, to ask for a loan. And I was told that I could only get the loan if my husband were to sign for me as well. So you see, the sorts of things that we face as we go along, then we suddenly realize that things are not quite equal yet for us. That was in 2000. I hope it's better now. I'm pretty sure that the banks are much more sensitive to things like that. But there have been many other experiences, and certainly other cultures with whom I've worked, don't have any of the liberties that many of us take for granted.
Well, thank you, Jennifer. I really enjoyed that story about your trip to the Yukon and taking that on. That was, you pioneered through and created that new path. But certainly with what you're saying about the institutions, banking institutes, it's slowly changing. It's coming. And you've seen that all around the world. So fast forward, how did the book and the movie come to be?
In 2010, I received a call from the BBC. They were putting on a show. It was an interview, a radio interview, and they invited me to come to London, England. Mm-hmm. The interview included all the people, the main people from the 1970 contest. The women's liberals, mm-hmm. The representative from the BBC who had been the master of ceremonies, and representative from the Miss World contest as well. And we all spoke, we all told our story. The name of the program was called The Reunion, and you can still hear it on radio. Mm-hmm. The focus of the program was that this was then several years after, and it had had such an impact, the women's movement had had such an impact on the contest in 1970, mm-hmm. that they wanted to discuss it and find out, from each of us, how it affected us. Mm-hmm. And the producers of the movie happened to be listening to the program, and they thought it was a fantastic story that would really lend itself to a movie. And it was not more than a few days after returning to Canada, I had a call from Left Bank Pictures in the UK asking if I would sign a contract with them to portray me in the movie. Now, that took 10 years to happen because they had to write the script, to do the research, and on top of that, they had to get the funding. So I think a number of factors helped them finally to get the funding that they needed. First of all, as you pointed out earlier, the movie was produced by women, directed by a woman, and all of the research and everything was it was really a woman's movie. And the Me Too movement started to become a real force. Just about the same time that the movie was coming all together. So it actually, the Me Too movement and the Black Lives movement all have resonance in this movie, which also included the issues of apartheid and the South African regime at the time. And the fact that they had sent 2 representatives to the Miss World contest in London, one white and one black. And the black representative had come second. So I came first, she came second. And then, of course, there was protest because nobody expected 2 women of color to come in first and second. There was speculation. The media was not used to having anything like this. We were not the typical, Eurocentric beauties to win, and so that added to all of the interest in the fact that the movie incorporated all of those issues.
There's so many layers to the film. And a great film, and certainly encourage everyone to take a look at that. So let's move into some of our questions around diversity. And As Miss World 1970, you, Jennifer, became the new face of beauty, a beauty that was more than skin deep. You're educated, skilled, poised, and ambitious. You were the whole package, as your sister Pommy would say. There's a defining scene in the movie Misbehavior where you, played by Gugu, say to Sally, played by Keira Knightley, one of the main leaders of the Women's Liberation Group. And what you say is, there'll be little girls watching tonight who will see themselves differently. You might just start to believe that you don't have to be white to have a place in the world. That's very, very significant statement. And, you know, then and even partly now, right? It's true. And it really, that leads us into our first question from one of our participants, Farron. And her question to you, Jennifer, is, as an East Indian child, you're brought up to think that being fair is being beautiful, and having long hair is being beautiful. What advice would you give to girls who don't feel pretty because their culture perpetuates that they're not?
Well, I think the first thing that we have to realize is that there is no one standard of beauty. If you go back to when I won Miss World, for instance, I was not the typical standard of the typical girl that had won Miss World. And I think that what you're reflecting, what you're talking about is physical attractiveness, because there's much more to beauty than that.
Absolutely.
That's only one aspect of it. I think, all right, the genetics affect the way we look, or general appearance, but it's how we present ourselves as well. It's how others see us and how we see ourselves, finally. So I think it's a combination of things that make us realize that no one person is the same, and we all have certain attributes. So as a psychotherapist, if I may put that hat on, I would always have said, and I have always felt this, in the final analysis, you need to be yourself. But in the process of feeling good about ourselves, I think we need to do a number of things. Here's a little exercise. First of all, each of us has a special quality, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some of us have particularly nice eyes, some of us have a nice voice. Whatever it is, learn what it is. And if you have a good role model, I'm sure that you can look around and find the latest role model, I think, is Kamala Harris. Look at her. I mean, she's a beautiful woman in her own way, but I think it was Roland Dahl who said that if we have good thoughts, those thoughts will reflect from inside to others. And in the final analysis, inner beauty is really what we need to strive for.
Yeah.
So never mind the cultural, I know that they do influence us, but they need to go beyond that and to realize that we can overcome anything. And as long as we know that we feel right about ourselves, and there are lots of things we can do to feel right about ourselves, become accomplished, take advantage of the opportunities that present themselves, and they're different standards today. And there always will be different standards by which we can be judged.
Thanks, Jennifer. We have another question from Angie, and her question is, how is a Miss World 1970 different from today? What has changed, and what is integral and relevant for women of 2020 to know?
Well, it's not as focused on physical attractiveness as it was in that time. And the standard of beauty was always then Eurocentric. It's not as Eurocentric. It's much more realistic. It's much more worldly.
Right.
Because when you think about it, these contests include gals from all over the world, as was the case in 1970. So why should the Eurocentric standard of beauty be the standard? Um, in 2019, five different titles, five different women won beauty contests all over the world. And they were from different parts of the world, and they were all women of color. And people said to me, "Oh, did you see this?" And I said, "Well, we're still talking about it, aren't we?"
Yeah.
It's when we stop talking about these things that I think we really will have reached somewhere.
So we see that there's that change that's come 2020 when we're looking at pageants today, and
Um,
they're focused.
I would like to say one more thing, if I
Yeah,
may.
absolutely.
Michaela, I would like to say that there's much more focus today on talent
Right.
and
Yes.
career aspirations. And I have to say, thank God, there are many more opportunities for women today. So you don't have to enter a beauty contest.
Mm-hmm.
Something you might want to do it, but I mean, I don't judge women that do it because I did that as well. And it was a great experience, but there are so many other opportunities for us that we should not feel in any way limited.
Great. Thank you. Our next question is from Dorothy. And her question to you, Jennifer, is, with most large corporations having active diversity and inclusion programs, do you see women's equality evolving and improving as a result?
Well, I certainly hope so. I think, yes, I think that they have to make sure that the training, these corporations, provide training and support and the kind of supportive environment for a diverse workforce.
Mm-hmm.
I think all of those things are important. But I think just appreciation and leadership that values diversity and realizes that it's good for everyone. It's good for business, it's good for harmony, and it's good for creativity.
Right. Because we look around us, in our communities, in our country, the diversity is there. So we need to invite all of those individuals and those folks to the table and include them in the conversation and the decision making. So we're, again, the strides are coming. And thank you for that. There's another question from Dorothy. It says, with COVID impacting women's ability to be as career focused, do you feel we will lose ground on what achievements we've seen?
Well, clearly, the effect of COVID has really hit women the hardest.
Yeah.
And it's now evident that it's women of color and people, diverse populations that have been most negatively impacted by it. I think that there is going to have to be a very concerted effort on the part of government as well as the private sector to address that inequality at a very substantive level. The Prime Minister of Norway recently issued a report that was taken up by the United Nations that says that there can be no pandemic recovery without gender equality, linking the two very clearly together. It really is, because the real facts of this pandemic is that women have become the unpaid labor. Women are having to give up their jobs to stay home and look after children and do the housework. And it's very clearly going to have a negative impact on the gender issues. So we will have to be very focused. Governments, they will require the advocacy that a group like this can definitely provide going forward.
Yeah, Thank you for that. Let's talk a little bit about unity. So Jennifer, you've worked in a variety of roles around the world that specifically focused on empowering all people, improving communities, and strive to unify social systems. What can we do to improve unity amongst our own gender? Of women.
Sorry, go ahead. Okay.
Sorry, Jennifer. Yes, with our own gender, with women working unified, coming together.
Well, I suppose that most of you now realize that the issues of gender are quite broad and affect a number of different people and so on. And there is now a consideration that we should look at gender, issues of gender in the intersectional way, which means that not all women have the same issues in the same way.
Right.
For instance, women of color are doubly affected. They have many of the same needs. You have the needs for childcare, need for higher education, need for job opportunities, need for equal pay, the need for overcoming the glass ceiling and so on. All of these are issues that affect women generally. But the fact is, getting into companies in the first place, the entry level, what we would then equate with inclusion, which was an important issue, if we want to think back, was always an important issue that people be included, diverse peoples be included. And the governments had a visible minority program where affirmative action, they would allow people into just to ensure that this did happen. A country that is outstanding in many ways is New Zealand. And New Zealand has really done tremendous things in terms of inclusion, making sure that the different groups in the country are represented and not just included, but in fact have real opportunities for success when they do make it into the industries.
Yeah, it's important again to involve and invite everyone, again, we talk about women and our own gender and unifying ourselves and supporting each other, as you said, and understanding other people's journeys. Even though we're all women, we have different stories, and working together to keep moving forward. So thank you for that, Jennifer. There's a question from Patricia, and she asks, given the many accomplishments you have in your life to date, which do you find to be the most rewarding?
Well, I would absolutely say my family, because I'm very proud of my 2 children and now my grandchildren. That means an awful lot to me and always has. But I think actually looking back, there's so many things that I have appreciated doing in my life. When I look back, I realize that I don't have any regrets, which is an incredible thing. It's not that I haven't made mistakes, but I don't have any regrets.
Yeah.
And so I think, though, looking at the what has happened with my participation in the Miss World contest, to think that occurred in such a historic period of time where there was so much happening and has now become immortalized, if you like, in this film, in the movie. Yes. But the reason that I'm proud of the movie is that it's accurate. It's an accurate portrayal of what happened. My daughter was quite concerned at one point that I was going to be one of the features of the movie. in the sense that she wasn't sure how her mother would be portrayed. At the end of the day, I think she was very pleased because she said, "Mom, she really did capture your everything, all that I am," and I guess for her. But so I think I am proud of the movie, and I'm more proud though of the fact that it is a catalyst for us to talk about some of these important things. For us to talk still about gender equality and racial equality, because that was timely then, and it is still very relevant today.
Very, very relevant. And also one of the things I love about the movie certainly is how you're portrayed, because I have the privilege of knowing you, and it's certainly wonderful to see you and your character on the screen. But it's also how the writers and producers really gave time to all of the women, yourself and the reasons you were there and the other women that were on the stage, but also the parallel of this women liberation group. And the movie doesn't seem to go to one side. I found it very balanced. And so I think there's a message in that as well. Again, learning and understanding each other's story.
But
So,
clearly that understanding only really comes from reaching out and making that effort, because the movie talks, there's a part of the movie where, as you mentioned, Sally has this discussion with Jennifer, with myself, Gugu, and that discussion actually occurred at the BBC interview 40 years later.
right.
So we did have that discussion, and it was an important one because it was as if Sally did not realize what it meant, what just being included and having the opportunity to do what I was able to do.
Right.
She couldn't see that until that was pointed out to her. And I will say that throughout the years, I have met little girls and women that have walked up to me and said, when you won, we just, all of a sudden, we could see ourselves in you.
Right.
It made so much impression on us. And that is what I took away from that. And although I originally came from the Caribbean, where I wasn't considered, I didn't feel like a minority, because it's a multiracial community that we live in the Caribbean. I had a fairly good sense of self when I went to the Miss World contest. And I think you also see that in the movie, because Pearl Jansen, who was the Black representative from South Africa, she felt she was just so happy to be at the contest, to have the opportunity to be there. And she was saying, "Oh, we're not going to win this world." And I was saying to her, "But just think, if you did win this world and you went back to South Africa, what you could do for your country." So there was, as you say, the movie was able to capture all of these discussions and take that, in a film, which is only an hour and just short of 2 hours, was able to capture some of that discussion that really fits in now neatly into the discussion about Black lives.
It does. Yeah.
Black lives and issues of race and gender and how they coincide and how they intricately are combined, or can be, what we spoke about, the intersectional. This is what we mean by intersectional, not just women, young white women, or young women of color, but women of different ages as well.
Right. Yes, there's many layers to the film, and many things that spark different conversations. But let's move into equality. We've got some questions in that area. Jennifer, your book, you talk about choices, that you need to build on choices, not to backtrack. Over the last 50 years, we've made a few measurable strides towards race, gender, and social equality in our country. We have a couple of questions in reference to that. So do you feel the creation of paternity leave versus maternity leave has made an impact on gender inequality in the workplace culture?
Well, I think it's a good thing. I think it is, because giving men paternity leave as well gives them an opportunity not only to bond with their children, but to understand much better the role of the wife or the partner.
Mm-hmm.
In another setting. They get an appreciation of what working at home is like, and looking after the children and cooking the meals and all of that. So when they come back into the workforce, there's a greater understanding of why it is important to balance home and work. That whole balancing issue, as well as the fact that it doesn't have. I think it may help as well to even the ground a bit, because there are some companies that we know of that sort of skeptically believe that women will go out on maternity leave unnecessarily, when in fact it's an important role that women fulfill, and parenting is an equally important role.
Absolutely. And if you had given the opportunity again of sharing that time with your family and with your children, it really does allow both parents to have, come together in that team effort. And like you said, to be included in that new process, it gives a whole new appreciation.
But the Scandinavian countries were very forthcoming in doing these things and starting all of this. And I think we benefited greatly from it.
There's a question from Jennifer. I recently heard it will take 200 years if we continue at the same pace to bring equality between women and men in the workplace. What can we start doing today to make significant changes in our lifetime? It's a big question.
I think we can start by sensitizing our own children. We can perhaps be more careful in not giving them specific roles and letting them equally share responsibilities at home. That would be something we can start at the home level. And I think generally sensitizing people and about the importance, because it's very important that women have those opportunities and that we really fulfill our full potential in this life.
Thank you. We have a question from Sonia, and it's specific to women's issues. Looking at the world from your perspective, Jennifer, is there one country that you could use, that we could use to model ourselves after?
Well, I think that all countries struggle to some extent with some of the issues that we've been talking about today.
Yes.
Some more than others. In the West, we feel quite, I think there are times when we sort of felt that we were way ahead of others, only to realize that we're not really as advanced as we thought we were. I think the Black Lives Movement has shown us just recently that we all have challenges in our back and front yards, if you like. So that I don't think there's any one country that has mastered all of this, but I think there are countries that try hard, very hard, to narrow the gap. And one of them is New Zealand, I would mention, because I've been to New Zealand several times. One of the things that I particularly admired there was the focus on promoting the indigenous culture of the Maori people.
Right.
Maori people are encouraged to promote their culture. They teach Maori in all of the schools in New Zealand. They teach about the culture, they teach the language, and they have perfected affirmative action in having definite Maori seats in the parliament. So every seat in every level of government has a hereditary Maori seat. And this is something that will continue as far as the Constitution of New Zealand is concerned. So I think that is something we can learn from. I know that here in Canada, we need to do lots more with our own native people, and certainly with minorities as well. So some of these examples serve us well.
Exactly. Thank you. Well, I'm just mindful of our time, but you mentioned in your book that after your BBC radio interview, the reunion, that you had more in common with the other women than expected. What did you come to realize meeting the leaders of the British Women's Liberation Group?
Well, first of all, we're women. We were all women seeking to have more opportunities. And that's really what they were talking about. I think that had they reached out to us to tell us what they were trying or fighting for, they would have found many of us quite supportive of what they were trying to achieve. And in fact, we could have influenced some of the things in the contest even back then, had we worked closely with them. So they didn't reach out to us, which I think was a missed opportunity. They didn't highlight the fact that apartheid South Africa was sending 2 representatives, one white and one black, to the Miss World contest, giving South Africa an advantage over most of the other countries. They didn't even see that. They were not looking at the intersectional issues. They were looking at the women's movement from their perspective. And their perspective at the time was, in the case of Sally, as in the movie, to get into Oxford and, to be treated on an equal basis with the men students, which was fair. We all could equate with that. While they were talking about more opportunities, well, we could agree with that. They were saying that we should not enter beauty contests. And I disagreed, and I think many of us disagreed, that you should limit the role of women doing anything. Women should have the opportunity to expand, not to be in judgment. I try not to judge people for what they decide to do, and rather to focus on in our day and time, to be strategic and to focus in areas that, if we can decide early on what we'd like to do, then there are all sorts of opportunities. But I used it as a stepping stone and an opportunity to take advantage of. And it led to other things in my case. And so I thought, why would we now want to limit it? Instead of enlarging the opportunities, don't tell us that we should minimize them. that was the significant difference between us.
I think it was, we spoke about this, it was Miss Jamaica that said, the pageant doesn't exploit me, I'm exploiting the pageant. So she's, again, strategically, she looked at that and used it. She made a conscious choice based on, you know, the outline of the pageant and used it to propel where she wanted to go. So yeah, she saw that as an opportunity. But Jennifer, before we wrap up our conversation, I'd like to share one of your personal quotes that I really enjoy. You have to take advantage of what opportunities come your way. They'll come in forms you would never have imagined, and they'll take you places you would never expect to be. I just want to thank you, Jennifer, for the opportunity to hear your keen insights and subtle perceptions tonight. Our time together has been short but insightful. I'm forever grateful to you for volunteering your time to be our first guest on Women United Virtual OverDUE Speaker Series. Jennifer, before we hand things back to Jazzy, do you have any closing words for this evening? Anything you'd like to add?
It's been a pleasure, Makayla, being part of this. I hope that I have attempted at least to answer some of the questions, perhaps not as fully or as specifically as they may have some of them. But I welcome anybody else that would like to contact me. You can send me a note. I'd be happy to expand a little bit and maybe get to know some of you. So please feel free to contact me at through my website.
Mhm.
The other thing I would say is that going forward, I think this is an important thing that we're doing. We're talking about these very important issues at a time that is unique for us. This pandemic has really shown us how vulnerable we all are. At the same time, how connected we are. And I think that we should take away from this the need for us to each try to do our best to reach out to others, to reach out to those that are less fortunate than we are, and share what we can with them. Mentorship or whatever else can be useful. And I do hope that I wish that the other speakers in your series will take up, will continue this, because I think it's very important. And more than happy to, as I say, to continue and to thank you for the time.
Oh, thank you. I mean, again, pioneering help. Thank you for helping us pioneer this series and kicking it off, and being that voice to spark the conversation. For those that are interested in learning more about Jennifer's story or to continue the conversation with her, as she said, she invites you to reach out to her at her website at jenniferhostin.com, and we'll share all that information with you post seminar. Also, Jennifer's book's available on Amazon and Indigo, and of course the movie Misbehavior can be streamed, I believe, through Amazon Prime and iTunes. But again, we'll share all that information with you. I do believe Jazzy's got a few other questions that she's going to bring to light for us, but I just wanted to say, in sharing our history, our experience, and wisdom, we can find the support to keep moving forward towards our collective mission for intersectional feminism. So thanks again, Jennifer. And Jazzy, I'll bring you back. And I think there might be a couple more questions if we have time, but the three of us are here, so.
Great, thank you. So we do have a few minutes, and thank you everyone for asking questions in our chat box and in our Q&A. We do have a great question, Jennifer, here. I'll just read it out here. So how do you deal with feminism when used as an insult when you're seeking equality?
Can you be a little more specific?
So I think she's asking, just sometimes in society that when you are trying to advocate for yourself for equality, others may view it in in a negative way. And sometimes you end up getting microaggression from some of those actions that we as women take when we're seeking that equality. What kind of advice or guidance would you give around handling those type of situations?
Well, it's very interesting because the interview that we had at the BBC, there was a difference in the way someone said spoke about us as ladies, and one of the women's neighbors corrected the gentleman for calling us ladies, and said you should say women instead of ladies. And I think that was, it seemed to me that they were picking on something that, I wouldn't take an objection to, because I was just as happy to be called a lady as a woman. And you know what I mean? I think that ladies is perhaps an old-fashioned way of addressing women, but and I'm quite comfortable to be a woman, but I think your question is still so broad that I'm not sure how to answer that beyond to say that try not to be oversensitive and try not to take things too personally. Is that what you meant?
Yes, thank you, Jennifer. And just personally for me, I know that I seek that as an opportunity to educate, that individual that may have or view view a comment in a or action of feminism in a negative way. And so I think that's a great opportunity just to educate people and, kind of give them the tools and around, gender equality. But thank you, Jennifer.
Yes, well, I think that if you try not to take it personally,
Yeah.
I'll use it then as an opportunity to explain.
Yes,
I
and it's
think,
a reflection of you, right? So
yes.
definitely. Thank you, Jennifer. Well, we are running out of time. And so I just want to thank you, Jennifer, for sharing your incredible story and journey with us this evening. I know I'll be leaving tonight with, inspiration, gratitude, and definitely that empowerment to make change. And I thank you for your time. And thank you, Michaela, for your continued support and commitment to United Way and Women United. Today, as we listen to Jennifer's experiences and journey, we know there's still much work to be done when it comes to gender equality. And more so now with the pandemic. The pandemic definitely is not an equal opportunity when it comes to gender equality. And we know women are disproportionately bearing the brunt. We know women are living on the edge of crisis, facing significant barriers such as increase in violence, poverty, mental illness, and isolation. United Way's mission has always been to help people in the places who help or need the help the most. And to reduce that opportunity gap between those facing impossible challenges and those who are not. This is something we work tirelessly on every single day. And together with your support, we will continue to lead the way and break structural barriers women and girls face. So join Women United, be a part of a movement that invests in local programs and fosters allyship with all men, women, and non-binary persons to forward gender equality. And I can assure you, this work is not possible without the commitment from the community. For many of us, it's difficult to truly imagine the devastation that abuse and inequality can bring in one's life. Yet for far too many, this has been or currently is a reality. And just to give you a snapshot of how you can change someone's life, just $1 a day, less than the price of a coffee, provides delivery of 47 hot nutritional meals to isolated individuals and seniors in need. And just $10 a week provides 3 hours weekly of emotional and crisis intervention to callers to a distress line. And for $25, you can give 10 newcomer women access to emergency counseling support for abuse-related issues. Truly, every gesture makes a difference, and your being a part of this event today is also a testament to your support of women and girls. And I thank everyone today for sharing your comments and questions in the chat box this evening. I do want to add that if you or someone you know is in need of support, please call 211. United Way is a proud founding partner of 211 in Canada. And this is a service that connects individuals or families with vital community and social resources close to home. From basic needs like housing and food to support for seniors and children, and to responding to crisis situations. One of the incredible things about this service is their translators are ready and available to support in over 150 languages. But if you'd like to learn more about Women United and how you can get involved, please visit our website, uwhh.ca, or please feel free to send me an email at jhundle@uwhh.ca. I'll put it in the chat box as well. And I'd love to hear from you, so please send an email. Once again, thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Michaela. And thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening and being a part of this very important conversation. Until next time, have a great rest of the night.